So there's a show that I love to watch on television called Naked and Afraid. And there's not a lot of naked in it that you get to see, so it's not a thrill that way, but it is very interesting to watch. And I prefer when the newer people play, because the old established guys know all the tricks. They know the first thing you do when you lay down on the floor in your dirt coma. Crazy show, Dora says. It is a crazy show. And the first thing you do is, when you get flat to go to bed, sleep on your side, is you take a stick and you dig a hole for your hip bone. And then you lie flat. But if you're lying without the hole in the ground, then your hip is up and it's very uncomfortable. Now that's something is genius, and you figure out and you find your own way. So all these pros, they share everything and they know all the tricks. So the recent show this week was really interesting, and it was a full 2 hours, and it was only, I say, a 21-day expedition. And it was, because lately they've been doing 1 hour shows, 2 hour block, but 1 hour shows about one couple, the second hour is about the second couple. This one got the full 2 hour treatment, which is what they used to do at the very beginning. And this woman told us right away that she is autistic, but she said it's Asperger's, so it's not, a severe non-functional sort of autism, which is what most people think when they hear that someone is autistic. And she said that she works for a software company. And this other guy was very nutty and very tall, and he was a wilderness survival expert. And the whole show was really a negotiation of how to deal with a person with Asperger's. And she was generally functional. She admitted that she couldn't do a lot. And sometimes there's just, that look that they get when they're about to crack and boil over that's very alarming. And she had several of those meltdown moments. And we find out later, now I skipped the first 5-minute introduction of them telling their background, their history, who they are, they take off their clothes. That's when I start the show, because that's what's interesting to me. I don't care what they do in their real life at all. But we find out from this guy talking to us, and this was all voiceover. Usually when they talk to us and give us information like that, it's a one-on-one interview. But there were many times in that show where he did a voiceover, meaning that they did it later in editing, which was fantastic because they knew what he needed to explain what was going on between the two of them, because she was basically unable to care for herself except for a few specific things that she did that were interesting. And he told us during the show in one of these voiceovers that he recorded later that he is sort of a camp counselor, and he goes into the wilderness for people with functional disabilities. So when he first met her, he knew that she had certain issues that needed to be addressed. And she told him straight up. And he said, I respect that. It's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. And they were off to sort of a good start. And then it got very interesting because she told us that she does not have good use of spatial legislation, meaning she doesn't know what direction she's going in, so she can't find her way home if she's out, looking for food. And she killed a couple of birds with the water pot. She just threw the water at them and killed the birds. That was very good. And he was out there with her, telling her how to get back to the Boma. And his advice to her was really genius and very simple. He said, keep the sun on your left side. If the sun is on your left side, you're going in the direction of home during the day. And he was as worried as we were as viewers, saying, if she gets turned around, there are lions there, elephants there, she would be in very grave danger. So he was out there They were collecting things to eat and to scavenge, and he was helping her find her way back home. And then she says, okay, let's go back to the Boma. And he said, okay, you go ahead. I'm going to hear and fix a couple of things. And she says, okay. So she starts walking. She's 25 feet away from him. And she says, okay, which way is home? And he said, I already told you. And she said, well, can you tell me again? Because I don't know where I'm going. And he said, well, I think you should figure it out. And that's when she had her first boil over, and she was very upset. And she walked away and called him an a-hole. And he was very alarmed by that. He said, that it's not a good thing when someone you're stuck with, that's my word, not his word, calls you an a-hole because you have negotiation problems. So he went back up to her, he followed her and said, you seem upset. What's going on? She said, I'm feeling stressed. And he said, why? He said, I asked you how to get home. It takes you 5 seconds to tell me which way. And he said, but do you remember where we talked about how to get you home if you're lost? And she said, she didn't answer. And he said, keep the sun on your left arm. And then she was like, oh, yeah, keep the sun on your left arm. Okay, right, I remember. And he said, okay. So she went back, and then he followed her to make sure she got home. And then he asked her, he said, why were you upset by that? And she said, well, because I couldn't remember. And he said, well, that's what we were trying to do together, was to help you find your way home. And she said, yeah, but I forgot. So there was really no resolution to that, but it's very interesting to watch him. He was very, very skilled in dealing with her, and he knew how to ask her the right questions. How are you feeling right now? In different terms. And she'd say, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling stressed. And then he was trying to teach her how to build a fire, and she was not interested. And she said, he thinks I'm stupid and I don't know how to do things. And then he talked to us in voiceover, not live on camera, and said, okay, I have a lot of experience dealing with the functionality of people, limited functionality of people that are similar to her. And I deal with younger kids want structure. They want to be told, do this, do this, do this, do this. Make a fire, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. He said, I realize she doesn't want that. She thinks I'm talking down to her when I try to help her understand how to build a fire, which she can't do on her own. She can't build a fire. So he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep engaging with her, but I'm not going to say anything to her about how to do things unless she asks me. And then things kind of cooled down. Then I guess she felt that she was in charge. And I thought she used a very, very interesting technique. And she said it from the very first time she met him. She said it repeatedly throughout the show. And that thing was this, that she'd obviously been trained to say, and it's very cunning and very controlled. She said to him, we have to be a team. We have to do things together. We have to be there for each other. Now, normally you don't have to say that in a survival situation because it's inherent in the situation of the context of what's going on. But me as a viewer watching, I said, well, that's very interesting because she knows she can't do things on her own. She cannot survive by herself. So instead of saying, I need you to help me, I need you to go check the traps, she flips it around, saying that for us to survive, we have to do this together. Meaning, you have to do things for me. And I'll try to contribute, but you're going to have to do it, which is basically what happened. And he got worn out. And she tried to do a few things, help build the shack, play with cordage, getting the water. She said, that's all I'm able to do. And he did everything else. He got the firewood, he got the food. And when she got the birds that she got, he would fix the bird. And he seemed okay with it till the very end when he was very worn out. She said, well, we have to stick together, we have to finish this. And what was interesting is that he was filthy the entire time, which they usually always are. And she was not. She was alarmingly fresh looking the entire show. Her hair was perfectly coiffed. She looked very beautiful. Her body was not dirty. I don't know if some kind of accommodation was made for cleanliness or some kind of issue that was going on, but there was something that was happening that we didn't get to see as a viewer that was going on with her, as far as her looking very presentable and very beautiful. And you have to wonder, look, if she were uglier, if she were more ordinary looking, with Asperger's, would she be as successful as she is and on television and having a software job? I don't know. How is beauty valued in the world and especially in America? I think it's very highly valued, and I think that she knew it. And then at the very end, she sat down, and they're like 100 yards from the finish. She said, I can't go on anymore. I'm tapping. And he said, look, it's right there. The truck is right on the other side of those trees. Why don't you just stand up and we'll go? And finally she did, and they finished, and it was interesting and a joyous celebration. But I have to say, that guy, the way he was able to code switch from one approach to another approach to this approach to that approach was absolutely a master lesson in how to get along with all different kinds of people, with all different kinds of personalities, disabled or not disabled. That guy knows how to connect. And I wish I knew his name. I think her name was Moni, M-O-N-I. I can't remember his name. But it was this week's Naked and Afraid. You can find it on a television box near you. I urge you to watch it just to learn how to deal with people and ask questions and get things done without offending them. And there were several times he offended her, and he wasn't trying to offend her, but she was offended. And he has to get along with her for 21 days. And they did. They made it together because of him. And then at the end, he liked singing, and she couldn't stand singing because of her Asperger. She hears sounds differently. So I guess in that way, she put up with him at that. But he said, singing calms my soul and makes me feel good. So how can you tell a guy not to sing? So check it out. Naked and Afraid. It's a very interesting show. Doris says, I will have to check it out. My nephew has Asperger's. He was very hard to handle, very stubborn. And she is sort of the same way. You can just tell with the look in her eye, she's not going to do something, or she's going to challenge him. He still is, Doris says. So, and she learns how to get along. I'm sure when she's at work and when she's with friendships, she says, look, we're in this together. We have to help each other. And that's a code phrase for, you're going to have to help me. And that's okay. I wish you would just say that instead of trying to form it around this wonderful relationship we're going to have, because it's really one-sided. But that's my take on it, Naked and Afraid. I believe it's on the Discovery Channel. And now we're going to take a very brief blood pressure break and come back and talk about all the things we haven't gotten to yet. Back in a moment.